Welcome everyone to Business Without Anxiety, tackling general anxiety under high pressure. And with the demand from our audience, we have Coach Inayat Kanji with us once more. It's lovely to have you, Coach Kanji. Welcome.
Thank you for inviting me back, sir. Thank you, Jeev.
It's real pleasure. And today we are going to talk about something really special. And we were really happy to see there is an overlap of some two frameworks that we use, ample and simple. And the P in between these two words stands for physical well being. And one of the key topics many people have asked us questions about is the impact of physical well being on mental well being, or what can we do physically so that our mental well being is better. And there are so many questions around it. If you see me watching here and there, I'm actually looking at some questions that are coming. And I will be answering that. And if you have any questions, you can email them to talksafely@mindly.uk or comment below, and we will make sure that we answer either live here or later. Brilliant. So, ample plus simple, there is a wonderful ring to it, isn't it, Coach Kanji?
I did think so. Yeah, when I first met you and learned of your business models, I thought that had much synergy, right? Mine obviously the
Exactly.
acronym standing for artistic, mental, physical, life-based, and educational therapies. And he's got a
Exactly.
slide. He does have a slide.
Yeah.
So that shows it there. But also, yeah, if you can enlighten us, what does simple mean, sir? Because I think, like you say, there's so much kind of just synergy, and they're quite synonymous in some ways. But yeah, if you can elaborate on what
Exactly. In
means.
fact, before that, what I really like about these words, both ample and simple, is that they are short words, small words, and easy to remember. Because in today's world of information, there is so much of information available. In fact, every other person is an expert on something or the other. And if they are not, they can go on the internet and become an expert in the next 15 minutes. Don't use it in action, then it does not help. So, what I tried with the word simple is try to connect all the kinds of well being that are connected with emotional well being. And I used to ask many intelligent founders, why do smart people fail? That was a question in my mind. And even though you will find financial gurus, people who understand everything about physical well being, they are already doctors and so forth, or they are amazing in relationships and so forth, but they are doing huge mistakes in something else. And I found that at the center of it all is the emotion, and that's where we slip. And that's why I put a picture of someone slipping on the stairs here. And I also realize that when we do all these discussions, we are not fixing anybody's problems. We're not giving a formula that you will never slip in life. However, next time you're about to slip, can we just catch ourselves quickly? If there is an emotional slip happening, even the money decisions relate to emotional slip. Physical problems could be related to emotional slips. So if I'm eating too much, or if I'm eating something that I'm not supposed to eat, and so forth, there is something inside that is telling me at that moment. Even if I might have a PhD in nutrition, does not help. People still have addiction to that substance at that moment because something else is happening emotionally.
Mm.
Um, Relationship, all related to emotions at the end of the day. Someone keeps calm, someone does not keep calm. Someone keeps too much calm without understanding the other person's request or need, and so forth. And you can see that I kept love life different from physical well-being, because I feel physical well-being comes from more on the body side of things and on the individual side of things. But in love life, it involves two people.
Mm. Mm.
And the first relationship, the first love we have, many people don't remember this until they are told, is with ourselves.
Indeed,
Still,
indeed.
we
Well, that's
we
why.
still have to have that.
Well, that's why. Sorry to interject, G, but that's why I thought, not only are they synonymous and they have synergy, I thought they complemented each other so well. because the way that I came about with my acronym for the business and the idea, there's ample methodologies, ample
Right.
therapies one can utilize to provide themselves with that feeling of being enough, with that feeling of self-love, with having filled their cup so they have enough energy to then go into the external world. It is to fulfill all these categories and aspects, have artistic
Correct.
outlets, have mental practices, and understanding, have physical practices and understanding, life-based experiences, mentors and coaching, and then again, educationally, to advance ourselves, for us to be able to have tools in this world. So, like it definitely, and it was a journey of my own life in putting together
Yeah.
the pieces for myself to understand both on an internal level and an external level what I need to do as a person when I'm struggling. Because obviously, as you know, how we met, it came from a conversation about pain and trauma. Many of us who embark on this journey of healing others don't do it lightly. It is often because
Mm.
we are almost by life, pushed in some way in that direction due to our experiences. And so when you said simple to me, I was like, look, we have ample methodologies, but it's so simple when you
Right.
address it in the right manner. Right. And then, as you have shown, everything, as my friends often talk to me or tell me, sorry, I'm the one talking to them. They say, you're always talking about emotions, because
Right.
ultimately, as a coach, I realize, and as a therapist, that is the center of everything. Emotions then create thoughts. So, as you
Yeah.
show within your lovely slide, it is the catalyst in some way for all the other social well-being, individual well-being, and the rest, which they can see on the screen.
Monetary, money, physical, and
Monetary,
love life.
physical, and love
Yeah.
life. Yes, indeed. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
In
yeah.
fact, it was told to me that even the best and very well-behaved, calm people completely behave in a different way when money is a problem. They have done
Indeed.
experiments that someone might be a saint
Hmm.
and they are then going through money issues, then they start behaving differently, and especially if it is to do with someone else as well. So, money is a catalyst of a different kind.
Yeah.
And it kind of amplifies if the person is going through a good situation or not so good situation. It simply amplifies that thing. What I'm really curious is on the artistic and the educational side. I'm picking up on one end the artistic and the other end education. If you could share a bit more and some more stories or experiences that encouraged and inspire you to connect with this side.
Yeah, sure, of course. I mean, I know today the agenda is to talk about the physical, but you can't ignore these two because
Hmm.
I firstly started my journey in some degree as a performing
Hmm.
artist. Um,
Hmm.
so whilst I was at school, I was quite a high achiever, migrant family. Parents were very, involved in my
Hmm.
education. And
Hmm.
so my first experiences in life were as a singer and a rapper. Um,
Okay.
and in doing so, you're constantly writing poetry of sorts, right? You're writing, but I did it in such a subconscious way in that I didn't actually know critically how much benefit it was giving me in terms of self-expression, and then
Correct.
even the
Correct. Okay.
performance of it, being able to vent it, right?
Hmm.
And so later, when I wasn't allowed to pursue it per se, for
Hmm.
educational purposes, I then chose
Hmm.
teaching eventually, right? And did
Wow.
an English degree and became a teacher. And so then the
Hmm.
teaching experiences, combining the educational with the performative, like I could see with young people how much they need these elements. And then ironically, during that time, I got an opportunity to return back to the arts as an actor. So
Right.
when I'd started doing all these things in, uh, in kind of a simultaneous way, I'm doing them in
Hmm.
tandem, I'm doing them at the same time, on and off, and then I'm going into schools as a teacher now, working on behavioral management, SEN work, special educational needs, neurodivergency, diversity, or
Hmm.
divergence. All these different things started making me realize the importance of the arts in treating this vessel,
Right.
right? And some people who might be able to really focus on words on a page may benefit from that practice of learning, but others are much
Hmm.
more visual. Others need to almost play through creativity. Their critical
Right.
mass works differently, right? So you
Right.
start to learn. Every human being is different for starters, but second to that, everybody does also need both outlets. You know, we can advance our critical mass through education, but also we need to heighten the theta state, which was our state of play from 2 to 7, which is always with us.
Correct.
That
Yeah.
state of imagination and actually hypnosis, where we allow the subconscious to direct us somewhat, and we get to play and let our critical mind quieten somewhat. Because, as you know, it can be exhausting, the overthinking process. So yeah, I don't know if that
That's
answers your
true.
question, but as I say,
Mm.
that in some degree, is my feeling as to how it kind of amounted for me, and then why later on I brought it back within this fold, the therapeutic fold, because I still operate as a teacher in private to children of SEN and anything other, and obviously I still work as an artist. You know, I'm writing a drama series at the moment, so I was even saying this morning on my stories, you know, it's such a therapeutic process writing a narrative through characters of
Right.
fiction, because I get to process my memories and my pain, you know, and this is
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
something I learnt in the experience rather than, you know, a qualification of such. It was just my personal pursuit. So yeah.
No, that's very powerful. In fact, I made a couple of notes, and I was about to say something about humans, but there was a comment related to that, and I was smiling about that. Humans are all different for starters, you mentioned, and I was about to say that not just they are different, they're different within themselves on any single day. So someone might be different in the morning, the same person is different in the afternoon in a different way. And what I felt both in the simple side of things and the ample side of things is sometimes you might be really creative and your physical side may be tired. Let's say that day you might be feeling tired, but mind is creative. Or let's say you are not feeling creative, but you want to teach someone else.
Hmm.
What happens is different abilities have their different ways of expression, and you put it in a nice way when initially you were doing rapping and so forth, and you used the word that you were not allowed to continue in there, and then you switch that expression towards English, towards teaching, and so forth,
I
because
did it very
as humans.
subconsciously though, Jeev. I didn't know, like, you know, because the therapy side came later once I struggled as a human and went for
Right.
therapy, then became a
Hmm.
therapist later, right? But it's really interesting because all our experiences, if we're able to learn from them, you know, take
Hmm.
them with acceptance, even things which we feel were forced upon us. I realized I had a choice all the time. I just made a
Yeah.
choice to not abandon my family's desires over my own, right? You know,
Right.
and to some degree, it might have had an impact on me. But the interesting thing is, it always enabled me then to later understand myself. Even when I was no longer doing it professionally, I start returning to writing lyrics, right? You know,
Yeah.
I was now a TV presenter and actor professionally, but you know, I would write lyrics, and then, like you say, I started realizing the relation to writing comedy, even, you know, being able to process, you know, hard feelings through scripts. But yeah, sorry, it just excited me when you're speaking like that,
Yeah.
because it was
Yeah.
such a unconscious, maybe a subconscious is probably even the wrong word, maybe it was an unconscious thing. But yeah,
Right.
but yeah, that makes sense.
In fact, the word that comes to me is natural,
Hmm.
because it was a natural decision or something naturally happened. You're naturally aligned with what makes you happy and feel safe in that situation. In fact, I come from a business consulting background, and I keep working with a lot of small businesses where these entrepreneurs have their versions of Superman or Elon Musk or whatever they look at. But they also go through life. And for me, the biggest hit that I have had a number of hits, but the biggest hit was bereavement. I lost somebody, and the person was very young, and and after that, it was followed with some more losses as well. And that triggers this, and we start looking for situations that make us feel safe. So it might be lyrics, it might be rapping, it might be creativity, it might be art, it might be dancing, and so forth. So uh, and there is a natural power inside that attracts us to that stage, whether it is subconscious or unconscious. I'm sure it is natural.
Innate. My name
Innate
is
is a
Inayat,
wonderful
and it just
word.
made me think innate. It's more innate than anything else, right? And
Amazing.
in Arabic, my name comes from the word ayat, sign, right? So we talk
Right,
about
right.
signs and gifts from God and the universe. And it's
Mm,
interesting you mentioned dancing there, because then it then catalyzed another thought. Why was
mm,
acting so fulfilling, even though I no longer
mhm,
had rapping or singing the way, and rap and singing was a very actually internal process. Though you
mhm,
do perform it on stage, is very different to acting. I'm not
mhm,
observing other people necessarily and telling their stories. I'm not being the
mhm,
tool always. Sometimes you can do it as a third person,
mhm.
observationally, but it is much more of an internal process to some degree, even when it comes to the performative side. Whereas acting is something so physical, like dance,
Yeah,
in that
yeah,
you get to express every emotion in a visual format through another
right.
character, which then you relate to through your own internal experiences, right? So, it's not autobiographical in the same way that rap can be, right? As I say, rap can
Mhm,
be playful and everything else, but often I used it in the more autobiographical way. I'm trying to
right.
vent my conscious. I'm trying to, process my emotions. I'm trying to understand situations around me, relationships, friends, everything other, right? Whereas, as I say, with acting, it gave me an opportunity to observe the world and then relate it back to myself. And that was,
Brilliant. Yeah,
again, and as I say, it was a very physically cathartic process as well. And when we talk about emotional well-being, that's why role play through acting can be such an amazing thing, because it's not just emotional and mental, it's physical too. But then, as you
yeah,
know, as a marathon runner, you know, physicality is something which is even more interesting to observe in how it reacts to us and how it benefits us emotionally and physically, because
yeah,
it's, yeah, as I say, it is something which within the therapeutic process is key. That's why it's at the center in some ways in both words. Maybe that's just chance, maybe that's fate, maybe it's innate, but who
innate,
knows?
innate.
Either way,
Yeah,
it's the vehicle of life, right? This is the
yeah,
computer, the functioning system, the brain, the mentality, emotions at the heart of the spiritual and the energetic, that which is not material. But then the physical, the vehicle, the car, the tool which we travel in,
yeah,
how do we address that physically, that physicality, sorry, how do we address that within this conversation of emotional well-being and also performative well-being, functionality,
yeah.
success, business, and everything else?
That's a wonderful analogy, and it segues to the main topic where we wanted to focus on the physical side of things because not just it has a real and a quick impact on the rest of the things, but at the same time, this is something where we have a huge amount of control and purpose as well. We used to do an exercise in some of my workshops where someone is not feeling that great or that focused or that calm, and we say, let's make a sandwich just
Mm,
with two slices of bread, couple of tomatoes or some vegetable, whatever they want, or if they want to put cheese, they have the options in front of them. And what they're doing is they're picking up one thing, then
mm,
picking up another thing, then just putting them together and aligning them. Someone might make a different sandwich and so forth. And all of them say, oh, it made me calm.
mm,
It's like even using a pencil to draw something, even if we are not a good artist or painter or anything, but the very fact of holding something and aligning it to the paper and moving it, when they say that you can just try coloring inside the lines and it starts making you feel calmer and clearer, there is something happening inside that is regulating the breathing, that is regulating the blood flow and the thought. And from many thought, we come into some thought to some version of no thought. It's still, we still have some thoughts, at that point, but at least it is okay. The blue goes here and the green goes that side, or something of that kind. And the
Is
same
I
thing that can happen. Yeah.
Yeah, no, so yeah, apologies. Keep going, keep going. I didn't want to cut you. I just
So,
was yeah.
and the same thing happens with working out in the gym or doing martial arts, or where you cannot just move your hand just like that. Even a dance, there is a certain way you do it, and that itself is aligning our neurons inside to make us come back to our version of normalcy in a joyful manner, in a
Mm.
powerful manner. In fact, in martial arts, there is courage and calmness and everything. The deadliest soldiers are the calm ones, I would say.
Well, it's interesting because I was listening to or doing some research the other day, and they were talking about anger, and it was specifically talking about
Hmm.
men, and how society's conditioned a lot of men to not experience any other emotion in
Hmm.
terms of acceptability of it, and thus they only process anger often. Whether
Hmm.
it's a breakup, they get angry. When it's work related issues like injustice at work or some performance related thing, get angry. Like many things
Hmm.
resolve around anger. And they talked about when you're angry, your visual kind of
Hmm.
peripheral vision becomes like 30% almost.
Right.
Again, again, don't quote me
It
on the number.
focuses, it becomes lesser
Yeah,
than usual, isn't it? It
but yes,
narrows. It narrows.
it closes, it narrows, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
at the same time, there are positives to anger, which is
Hmm.
another controversial one, which in this modern age, because many
Hmm.
people almost think anger is toxic. It's only toxic when it's
Okay.
exacted in a way that is destructive. But
Yeah.
anger is an emotion, right? And if we don't
Hmm.
channel it and understand it,
Hmm.
then often it can implode upon us, right?
Right.
Especially if we're trying to press it down, we can get to that depression stage where we're pressing down the emotion and then we're numbing ourselves, and then often
Hmm.
sometimes we have that kettle boiling and they overspill, and then we have rage, or we numb
Hmm.
ourselves completely where we're detached from all emotion, all empathy, all kind of like feeling. It can have a
Hmm.
very detrimental effect if we can't process feelings such as anger, even extreme ones like that, right? And so martial arts, you mentioned, for me has always been that. It
Hmm.
has always been to process anger in a channeled fashion whereby I'm
Right.
still almost calm, but
Hmm.
it's a fuel that I release slowly at the right time and place. Because in a fight,
Right.
if
Hmm.
I'm erratic and angry, often I will fight really badly and I'll
Yeah.
get beaten up. I know there's a white elephant
Hmm.
in the room. It is obviously my face, but I haven't been beaten up. I just like to let people know. But even if I had, even if this was just some really hard sparring, this is another
Right.
thing. How does one deal with physical and emotional pain? The way I
Hmm.
always related it was through the physical first, Chief, right? Because to
Hmm.
some degree, as a kid, the things that happened to me, the events didn't
Hmm.
define me, but the narrative that occurred at the time did make me really question
Right.
emotional pain and how to deal with it. Certain traumas I experienced really made me think I can't handle emotional pain.
Hmm.
But it is through martial arts and the physical and
Hmm.
understanding, if one can handle certain feelings of discomfort
Hmm.
physically,
Hmm.
if one can handle their ego when they get
Hmm.
beaten, if one can handle the feeling of being overwhelmed when they're losing, if one can handle all these emotional challenges, which then translate to the physical as well, which have a consequence physically in terms of physical pain, then
Right.
when dealing just with the conversation within myself emotionally, surely I have the capacity.
Yeah, that's
Does that make
true.
sense?
In fact, I'll add a real
By the way,
example
I fell off
from.
the scooter. Just to let you know, I fell off the scooter. That's just letting you know. The child in
I,
me, see, keeping physical. But we'll
I,
get to
I,
that. We'll get to that. But yeah,
I
sorry,
hope
sorry. Go
you're
on, Chief.
fine. I hope you're fine.
I'm fine.
Um, um, No, we did have a small discussion about it. And yeah, so on that front, just to give a real example on that, I was talking with someone who has gone through childhood trauma, childhood abuse, and she is now grown up, and she trained in martial arts in the last 2 3 years. In fact, during COVID, she was even doing it on Zoom, and it's a tough one to do on Zoom, especially with martial arts.
It
And
is.
I could relate to her because once I started talking about my anxiety coming from bereavement, it opened up more emotions from the past, and I started talking with my then counselor about why I'm so afraid of doors, because I was abused behind a door. And those days, a child actually accepts whatever is told to them when we are younger, and we are told certain belief systems that I am weak, or this is how it is, or you cannot face the world this way. And this lady, who was brave enough to process her emotions again and learn martial arts, she said, while she is doing this martial arts, she is actually able to reprogram her belief system that now I don't need to be afraid of this, and I can actually ward it off and hit it and save myself and stay protected, and I am enough. That's so powerful.
Mhm.
And she said, while and the person who was teaching her martial arts did not know about her past, but she was using the martial arts to reprogram her thinking and feel so strong inside. And now the way she walks, the way she talks is completely different because she feels I'm enough. And that is
So
such a big thing for mental health.
when you're overthinking or you're feeling overwhelmed emotionally, you addressed it earlier as well. Um,
Hmm.
just in the act before you've even become proficient, let's say, at martial arts, where you have the confidence, because that's something, obviously, again, working
Takes
as a teacher, as
practice.
a coach, it takes
Hmm.
practice, right? And I have a lot of young people who come to me, their parents bring them because they're being bullied or something other, right? And they want to build
Hmm.
that confidence, that self-assurance, that self-belief, that feeling good enough, as my professor Marissa Peer always says. Shout out to her. So within that, um, I firstly know that I benefited from that. Another
Right.
person may have been crushed, you know, getting abused sexually multiple times for multiple years. Then at the same time as that, physically having so much violence in my life as a youngster, both from family, people who are supposed to care for you, adults, and then at the
Yeah.
same time in the streets of London, like fighting so much, having dealing with guilt and issues around my brother, often ending up in hospital because of me. So many different things which happen in terms of your PTSD, then going through
Mm.
divorce. These are all milestones of life where, some people are granted somewhat more of a, you would argue, an easier moment. Not ride,
Right.
easier moment, right? In that,
Hmm.
or maybe it's a ride, it depends, many moments. But,
Hmm.
unfortunately, I had all of these things occurring. Some of it might have been self-inflicted because emotionally I haven't fully processed and understood all these things which we now talk about within Ample and Simple. But it's
Correct.
really interesting because within it, if I wasn't placed in a martial arts class at 7 years old, and if I didn't
Hmm.
start that journey when I was bullied, when the let's call it what it is, the pedophile, who came
Hmm.
as a teacher and as a spiritual teacher as well. He's teaching me Arabic, he was teaching me
Hmm.
French, like, right. So he had both
Hmm.
capacities of a GCSE teacher and somebody
Hmm.
from the community who could hide behind that cloak, right? That costume.
Right.
So within that, it shattered so many things for me, culturally, religious identity, so many things, right? And when we talk
Mm.
about the working world, even smart people, why do they not achieve? I used to beat myself up saying, I'm a straight A student. My parents pushed us so much for private schools and skipping years at school to get even more advanced, and then now in life, I'm really struggling because of the weight of this emotional angst and everything that's happened to me. Physicality was my starting point. Because when
Right.
you can't escape the mind and the emotions within, the only process until you can start meditating and praying again, because even prayer
Hmm.
became such a hard process for me. My head's fleeting everywhere. I'm not thinking about it's just
Yes,
words
its
then,
thoughts
right?
are everywhere at that time.
Ritual,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
For those who do believe in God and do have practices, they might relate
Hmm.
to it and understand. The mind can go into autopilot and you're thinking about something else. You're not even present, right? And then that
Yeah,
relates to how you become present. Stop thinking of the past, regressing and ruminating or worrying and causing anxiety, thinking of the future. How do you stay present? After addiction issues, after divorce, after these child traumas, physically and sexually, it was, as I say, that one thing that used to bring me back all the time. And remember, I had drug
hmm,
problems whereby I had to physically overcome things as well as emotionally, detox from a
hmm,
drug which I got myself addicted to. And it was
hmm.
this every time I would be back in the gym as soon as my body could cope again, because I just knew that if you get out of your head
Yeah,
physically, if you move the vehicle, like you said, the breathing system, why breath work and meditation, all these things are such amazing therapies, is because
right.
you're almost doing it automatically as you get out of breath. You're doing it automatically as you do forms and movement and learn something new, right? Even martial arts, you're having to learn something new. Like they talk about the language thing, as you get older, learn a new language, keep your mind malleable. It's something simple in terms of its visual kind of imagery, because it
Yeah,
is just human movements, just
yeah,
in forms, right, in shapes. But it's something, in terms of hypnotically, you know, um, it grabs you, which keeps you focused, as you say, to not then be able to fleet to other thoughts. And then your body is physically processing as well because it's having
yeah.
to use the entire engine system. And so breath is all it's focusing upon, refilling the system so I can cope, so I can do the next movement, so I can do the next push up, so I can throw the next punch, so I can lift the next person and wrestle with them, whatever it may be, whether we're in the gym lifting weights, all of these things, running a marathon.
Yeah,
Cardio makes a coward out of anyone, right? So it really does, as I say, for me, have its core in terms of
yeah.
understanding oneself's emotional well-being. Because before we have the capacities to do anything in a healing sense, this
Hmm.
is a gift for free. It's a gift for free. Everyone can run, everyone
Definitely.
can move, everyone can at least exert themselves if they have physical ability. And even those who are limited, there are still ways. I work with SEN in terms of sports and other things, right? So I know that it's all relative as well, but you have to exert yourself physically somewhat sometimes to escape the internal process when it becomes overwhelming, so that you can then return to it when it's safe for you to return to it.
There are scientific studies to support this already, and they have found that physical exercise being done is 1.5 times more useful than the best of emotional and mental well-being methods that are said, mainly because there is a chemical reaction happening inside. And it has been found that the same chemical reactions that are given by certain drugs, which is not in a healthy way or in a dependent kind of way, can be regulated by breathing, by sleeping, by hydrating. So, in fact, people can actually sleep to feel better and recreate the same effects of the drug in a healthy way, which is a meditation at the end of the day is a different version of rested mind or a focused mind or calm mind, which is closer to sleep. And for those who are interested, there are alpha stage, beta stage, theta stage of coherence between the brain waves and the heart waves. And this is where we go into the state of flow. And that is also the quickest way to get disturbed, meaning and let me use the two S that we have in some of our
State of flow is
workshops.
an interesting one. State of flow is an interesting one. So yeah, please, yeah.
Yeah. So the two S I had in mind is the shield and to soothe. S for soothe and S for shield. So let's say someone hit me. And so the first thing I would do, and it's there in the animal kingdom as well, any living being, even on a bacteria, if you try to do something into its external environment,
Mm.
first it will try to move away, which is shielding. So if you try to do something, I move my head or move my face so that I don't get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if at all I still get hurt, what would I do after I go to a safe space is soothe myself. I would massage it. If I got hurt in my hand, I would do something. I would put some painkiller or something like that and do something. And it's again, even in the animal kingdom, if one animal has attacked another one and that one escaped to a safe place, later they start to lick their wound so that they can feel better about it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the interesting thing is this happens to our emotions as well. So if you try to attack me using emotions, or my anxiety or my stress triggers,
Mm-hmm.
then the first thing people do is to shield themselves.
Right.
So they go for a run, they go for a smoke, they go to watch Netflix or watch continuous videos on Instagram or something because for that moment they have switched off from the trigger
Mm-hmm.
and they're distracting themselves with something else.
Mm-hmm.
But some of these triggers or distractions are healthy because they help us overcome and become stronger. So, for example, if some person is learning martial arts or learning a breathing technique, or they're learning to do something that is going to help them overcome the same trigger next time, then that is good, all good. But if they're just watching a video of someone just jumping or TikTok something that was funny, they made them laugh for a moment, changed the chemicals inside, but has not changed the internal resilience of that person.
And this is what I
After the
mentioned, the
TikTok,
passive and the active, right? Because
yeah,
as you're mentioning, you know, like it's so important to have an active therapeutic process.
yeah,
You know, because again, you do not want to be left alone with your thoughts, and beyond that, as you say, you know, when they're destructive thoughts, right?
mm,
Remember, there's difference between, you know, processing our thoughts in a healthy manner, and as I say, when we're overwhelmed and we're unable to process our thoughts, right? Because then you start running up towards the boiling kettle again, right? So yeah, so it's interesting what you're relating.
I just remembered one more example which I will share in a moment. And I saw a comment coming about anger because you mentioned about that. But
Was my
tell
best
me a
friend.
bit more. But tell me a bit more about the state of flow that you wanted to share about. And before that, I remembered that when I was doing workout and my personal trainer was actually asking me to do something way beyond what I thought could do. And I had to bring my thoughts down because if I don't focus with that much weight on me, I
Yeah,
could
yeah,
hurt myself. I could hurt myself, right?
of
And
course.
so effectively, I was in a state of flow at that moment because I had to focus.
Mm.
Otherwise, I couldn't do it. But tell me a bit more about what you were sharing about the state of flow.
Well, you know, this is something which I discovered as a youngster, but again, unconscious of the fact, and then returning as a therapist, realize its power.
Hmm.
Because what we're talking about earlier, you know, when the mind is so engaged in the physical activity that it does not want to layer it with other thoughts, but rather is so hyper focused on the individual activity that one is doing.
Right?
This can be found often in the most heightened state of play.
Okay.
When one is at the height of creativity,
Hmm.
whether it's physically, whether it's artistically, but often you can combine them. Even, you know, you
Hmm.
mentioned dance. You know, dance relates
Hmm.
to martial arts very much because it is just movement um,
Hmm.
to a different purpose. But
Hmm.
within it, you can achieve flow states where you're so free of thinking that you are merely feeling. The
True.
next move is not predictive. It is not speculative. It is not
But
planned.
aligns.
It
Mm.
is just being. And often I love there's this line which one of the first films I was within. I asked this character who's meditating what you're doing basically,
Hmm.
and trying to jest with him. And he basically says, "Human beings have become human doings. We've forgotten
Mm.
how to just be." right? And this relates also back to what we were talking about earlier. And as I was saying to you, even off air, off the online platform, that when I was listening to and doing some research on just as we always do, mental health and emotional well-being, it was interesting to hear again the idea that in modernity, human
Mm-hmm.
beings have become efficiency processes. Like, just everyone thinks success and well-being within that success is in being more functional, more efficient, being able to process more. But as you know, remember I said to you, when I unfortunately felt a pinch of austerity, and at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, for personal reasons, had moved back to London and decided to no longer drive,
Mm-hmm.
for environmental reasons, for so many different reasons. But if I'm honest as well, it's the fact that I'd gone through a lot. I was rebuilding,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't want to go spend £20,000 on an electric car with the ULEZ and everything else, right? So I was forced into a
Mm-hmm.
situation where it's like, make a decision. I'm just going to walk. I'm going to take
Okay.
public transport. I'll ride a bike. I'll do certain physical things which allow me time to process. Because from meeting to meeting, from venture to venture, trying to create all the time for the process of what other than survival and
Right.
more human pleasure and experience, one can often ignore the other aspects of life. Where in the past, yes, there would be acts of acquiring one's sustenance, whether it's through hunting or something other, whether it was men fighting for the practice of war or protection of their village.
Mm-hmm.
But then
Mm-hmm.
thereafter, there was 3 hours of processing the fact I just lost that fight in practice, emotionally processing that as they walk back from a desert to another plot of land where they're farming. It was not
Right.
one which was hyper stimulated by constant external processes, focusing externally constantly, whether it's from a screen to your emails to something other, right? It's everyone knows the modern day. I don't have to describe it. Jumping in your car, then checking on your calendar, what Google Calendar says next, and then we're jumping again. How much time? And some people are very good at it. They take their breaks, they go for their little walks. They sit with themselves. I had a friend recently. She's feeling really down. She's great. In fact, I should give her a shout out. 111 approach, 111 approach. Lack me. And she got invited, and we got invited out for a weekend and things like that. And she just said something really interesting to me that I'm feeling overwhelmed, but rather than distract myself, even though I know I'd really have a great time on the weekend, I need to sit with myself. I need to
Yeah,
understand
that's very
myself,
true. That's
right?
very true.
Many of us find it really awkward and hard to do. But as I say, if one is finding it too hard to the point that it starts, and we haven't got into this yet, it starts impacting your physical health,
Mm-hmm.
because the amount of clients I see for mobility and a bit of MMA one-to-one and doing flexibility stuff and yoga and things, because they have sciatica issues or they have
Right.
insomnia, or they're having mad panic attacks and anxiety, and teaching them breathing processes and physical movements that can calm them, then doing the hypnosis and therapy work with them, then talking to them about artistic endeavors and cognitive behavioral endeavors and other things they can do, then experience of my life and imparting stories, the whole package. But it often
Correct.
starts with the physical. you know if it doesn't start with the physical, then I often start with the mental and start with the hypnosis. But again, they have to be committed to it. Whereas most
Yeah.
people will accept, I'm feeling low at the moment. I'm not doing anything. I'm being lazy. Etc. Etc. I'm a bit lonely. So you can convince them, or at least persuade them to understand there is benefit in physical movement. But many don't
Amazing.
understand the relation to when they're lacking emotional outlets, when they're lacking mental outlets, how it starts impacting their actual physical health. They often think it's just chance, rather than understanding this is a cumulative, energetic
No, there is a
experience.
direct relationship there. In
Yeah.
fact, one question that came, there are about 7 questions, but I'll pick the social
Let's
one
go
of
through the
them
questions.
because
Let's go through the questions. Let's go through the questions.
that
Yeah.
Yeah, the social one actually relates to what you mentioned, and somebody mentioned how does physical like taking care of this relate to your social well-being, and hence helps the mind.
And I want to
And
address
in
the
fact,
anger one as well, because obviously you mentioned somebody to mention anger as well. So yeah, so you run through it.
yes, yes,
Read me the questions you want to discuss, and because I know we've talked on a very general expanse now about the physical in terms of how necessary it is, and we've even talked about the
yeah,
artistic and education and everything other. But like we've now mentioned, it does have a direct correlation to your health as well, the emotional management
exactly.
and physical management. But yeah, let's see what they're saying.
In
What's the
fact,
public saying?
the physical well-being, when you were mentioning about feeling it in the body, there is this person Jeffrey Allen who does not. He is married to a Japanese lady, and in the initial, even now they sometimes bring an interpreter to because they don't speak each other's language,
Oh,
and they
wow.
said one of yeah they and they are like they do their own teaching in energy. But what they mentioned is one of the deepest conversation between them was when they were not speaking in words and they were walking among trees, physically feeling better. And because there has been scientific studies that
Wow.
it recreates the chemicals inside us that take care of the mental well-being side of things, and nature is directly correlated with that. And speaking of that, especially for men after the age of 40, physical workout has been proven to generate the same chemicals that give you mental health. In fact, 95% of our serotonin is actually in our tummy, not in it's used in the brain. It affects the
Yes,
brain, but it gets generated somewhere else, right? And
100%.
when we are doing workout, it creates the chemical cocktail
Yes.
inside to keep our mental health correct.
You mentioned dopamine. You have the chemicals which produce for your health, aid in sleep. There's
Yeah.
so many. There's
So
testosterone and
melatonin,
hormones.
serotonin, dopamine, and so forth. So they have a acronym for that as well.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um, the one with for the anger part of it, and this person actually has attended one of our emotional wheel exercise. I normally say there are no negative emotions, and people get surprised in the workshop. What do you mean there are no negative emotions? Then I wait and say they're all protective.
Hmm,
They're trying to protect us. So anger or frustration or whatever the usual society thinks of as negative emotions, the first reason they are here is to tell us something is not okay. Can you take care of it?
hmm, hmm, hmm,
That it's like an indication for us to wake up and do something about it.
hmm.
And the comment was, "Is anger helpful?"
Is anger
And you
help?
were mentioning he's my best friend, right? So you go ahead with your answer, and I'll add mine later.
Okay, sure, sure. So, like, I think I touched upon it earlier a little bit in terms of channeling anger, right?
Yeah.
Because as you mentioned, anger can be a great indicator to us also of danger, can
Hmm.
be a great warning sign. And if processed in as I say, a balanced manner, a non-destructive manner, then it can be very, very useful. Even let's take, to a certain degree, if we're dealing with a fight or flight situation, where you're
Hmm.
physically endangered. If I'm in a fight, anger protects me physically, even. My adrenaline keeps me from feeling pain. I'll feel the bruising and the pain afterwards, but this is what I've learned as a fighter.
At
You
that
know,
moment, it helps you. Yeah.
in that moment is massively helpful, because if I feel
Yeah.
fear in that moment, every punch I feel, every kick I feel, every elbow, every knee, every headbutt
Mm.
is going to be extremely painful. But
Right.
if I can channel my anger in a manner that I fuel myself, it can be helpful. Now, I know that's an
Hmm.
extremist situation, but let's take one more relatable. If
Hmm.
your child is about to be, mistreated, if your
Mm-hmm.
child is unfairly, you know, picked upon or
Mm-hmm.
spoken to, it is
Mm-hmm.
your anger that makes you jump to their protection to some degree, right? If you had no anger within you, no capacity to access it, you might be, and I've met people who, unfortunately, you know, as patients have said, my father, for instance, never stuck up for me. You know, he was
Right.
always like a
Yeah.
doormat, you know, like he let everyone abuse me and he said nothing.
Mm.
And they're girls, let's say, you know, so they
Mm.
expect that fatherly role to some degree, Jeev, right? So in
That's
that
sad.
respect, again, you know, like anger, you know, it's not that it's, again, to be thrown around, you know, without thought, but it is
Mm.
something that I've recognized even when I was younger and I got abused and things like that. If I didn't have anger, I probably wouldn't be able to even fuel myself to achieve. I would have, in those
Yeah.
moments before I could
You
process the,
convert that. You
yeah.
change it to. In fact, this is what I have written in my book as well. How do we convert trauma to impact? And
Well, you
some
have
of
to
the best
go. Yeah, go on, no, go. I cut you again. Otherwise, go. Keep going. Some of the message. Yeah.
some of the best people in the world who have done huge impactful projects did it because they went through something that was not that great, whether it was their education was not good, or their society was not good, their safety was not good, or something else, because this is a big topic, and that drives them to create something where they can now create a school or create a hospital or create a program or create an educational system, or be there for someone. In fact, I recently met someone in Basingstoke. She has created a company that says that we'll keep the streets safe after 9 o'clock, so that if anybody is returning by themselves, they can actually feel safer, and they have a phone number they can keep talking to while walking back, so that if something happens, at least there is one more human being who knows where it happened and immediately send help. And it's unfortunate that there are places around that this needs to be there, but someone's trauma, someone's frustration, someone's anger is now creating something so positive and so powerful over there at that conversation.
Because it can bring determination, it can bring resilience, it can bring so many
Yeah.
other, you know, it's interesting. Somebody asked me the other day, and there's a podcast I'm going to be doing soon for a charity called Lantern of Light. Give them a little plug. It's the question of, aren't there only three emotions really?
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we talk about the primitive emotions, but you know, and I believe anger might be one of them,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of those primitive emotions. But there's so many degrees that
Mm-hmm.
we now know about, because obviously language is just a description of feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and that which is external, again, right?
Mm-hmm.
That which we utilize, so a form of communication. So in that, I now recognize that we have to experience emotions like waves, and that's
Right.
why, whilst
Up and
we
down.
are
Yeah.
talking about anger in a positive,
Mm.
that's when I was getting excited before and almost cutting you off, because I had to caveat it with the fact that, but you cannot run on it as your
Yeah.
only fuel.
Yeah.
Because if
Yeah. It
it's your
has to be.
only,
Right. It will
yeah.
go
So
to
no,
burnout. It
jump
will
in,
go
because
to
I know you
burnout.
know what I'm talking about.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I meant. I'm just adding that it will lead to burnout if you just run on anger as the fuel. And so
And
many people reach there. Yeah.
or again, or we talk about destruction, you know, because
Yeah.
sometimes I know people who are very good at getting over certain
Mm-hmm.
difficult things externally, but they resort to anger a lot and they end up impacting everyone else around them. They think to be able to move on. I would argue they're compartmentalizing a lot and they just have a way of deflecting. Because when they truly sit with themselves, that you recognize, and you recognize some from the mere fact that they have outbursts all the time, right? It's their emotional
That's true.
regulation,
Yeah.
right? Because they're
Yeah.
jumping and skipping emotions, as I was saying before about men and how we've often not been allowed to display our emotions entirely, and thus we only sometimes relate or resonate with anger. But as we
Right.
described, it can lead you to burnout, self-destruction. In my case, a lot of self-loathing, because I recognized that
Hmm.
it was a mask that I wore a lot of the time to get through the world, and I was now lacking connection as a result, because you're unapproachable, because you're always angry. You know, there's many other consequences to it if you are constantly in a state of anger. Then we're not even and we haven't gotten to the internal, right? What does that
Yeah,
do?
yeah,
Imagine just boiling all the time. You know, we're
yeah,
H2O, yeah? H2O, right? Yeah. Like, imagine just gases and waters like just boiling up in your body constantly, right? Yeah. The idea that it's not going to have some physical, long-term medical effect to you, whether it's again, and sometimes it can manifest in illnesses of the mind or illnesses of the
hmm,
body.
yeah, both
Often
of them.
skin issues are the
Exactly.
first thing that it shows, because there's a heat
Yeah.
imbalance, because you're angry. Anger brings about heat. People sweat when they're angry. It's so interesting how
Yes.
connected the physical body
It
is to
directly
the
affects
emotion.
the blood pressure, the breathing, the speed,
It's not
and
fluff. It's not,
for
it's
those who
not
do,
woo-hoo like, Eastern,
yeah,
like ancient medicines. Like,
there
in
is
fact,
a relation there. Yeah, there
there
is a
is a
relation to
direct
the
relation,
both the
right?
sides. Yeah,
And the
yeah,
interesting thing is, now that people have that modern perception, not understanding that ancient Eastern or otherwise African, or things from the South America, all these olden civilizations had really, before studying the external technology industry, had studied this
yeah. They
vessel
had the
first,
internal. Yeah.
right? And in
So
studying that,
here,
they understood the sciences.
yeah, definitely. Apologies, but just look, we have 3 minutes left. Yeah,
You
time is
wanted to do
flying, and
25 minutes, Jeev.
we have to do one more. In fact, looking at the comments, and because there are few more comments that have been asked, and we will reply to that
Is there another
in one
question
more
we can answer?
episode of this. One quick one, I will do it, and this one we actually do something called emotions to revenue ladder, because someone asked, how does physical well-being relate to money? And I remembered one of my friends who used to work for Volkswagen long back in Spain at the country level. He lost his job, and until he got his next job, every day he used to go to the gym. And people you were like, you don't have the money. Why are you spending it in the gym? And he told me something that I still remember, that once you take care of the physical well being, your headspace is clearer. When you take care of that, your emotions are clearer. Emotions are leading to decisions, and decisions are directly related to money, whether it is salary or revenue, and so forth. And unfortunately, we have only 2 minutes left, and we might have to wind up right away. But what we promise is we will dedicate one more episode on this topic, and we have some more questions coming in. So it's only fair that we do one more so that we can go a little deeper into this
I was
thing.
going to say,
What do
maybe
you
in the
think?
next one we can just answer the questions, because we stack them up now as
Ye-
well. We have the
Yeah.
interest, we have the viewers' ear. So yeah, maybe we can do that.
That's amazing. I sincerely thank you, Inayat, and this is such a deep topic, and it's an ongoing thing. Many people still feel a sense of shame, especially men, and even women have a different version of men and talking about feelings. And so we got to think about doing more conversation around it, because when we talk more, it becomes a diminished problem, it becomes a shared problem. And instead of looking at it as a problem, we think of it as a shared situation where we can uplift ourselves and go to the next level. I really love the simple and ample combination. Last words would be sincere thank you, Nayat, and we should talk again very soon for our audience.
No, thank you very much, G, for having me on the show. And yeah, lastly, I'll just say, if people do want to do some physical activity, hit me up on Instagram, Master MMA3, mixed martial arts, learning how to master self through mixed martial arts. If you're based in Harrow, by all means, do come through for a lesson. But yeah, thank you again, sir.
And
As
we're
it's
extending
always
to
a
some
pleasure.
more places as we're extending your classes to some more places as well as we were
Oh yeah,
talking.
most
So
definitely.
some more places.
We're gonna get around London and beyond, hopefully soon. But yeah, it's just one of those whereby it's we're trying to juggle all the letters within my ample
Yeah,
therapy, right? Writing a drama
yeah,
series, doing life coaching, hypnotherapy, mixed martial arts. But yeah, all in time, yeah, we go where people need me. So as they say, whatever the need may be, call on me, ample therapy. I'm there, bro. Coach Kanji.
definitely. I'll leave all the contact details below this video. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you, Chief. Have a wonderful day, sir.